Hello and welcome to this week's episode of The Mentalman's Journal with me, Henry, the creator and founder of The Mentalman's Journal. This week's topic, we are going to be looking at depression. And specifically, we're going to be looking at some statistics from the Office of National Statistics.gov. And we will also look at what it's like to suffer from depression, to experience depression. And I'll be sharing that from my own experience, not a generic experience. And the experience of being depressed is very different to just being sad, which is contained within the normal realm of human emotion. It's only natural that I made a plan to do something I really wanted to do, and then I couldn't do it with someone I wanted to do it with. And then I felt sad because my plan hadn't materialized. But what we can learn to do as well, and what I'll look at in further episodes, is how to turn that frown upside down as well we do, and sort of see the silver lining of clouds. Not in a cliche way, but in a way which genuinely does something impactful, and I hope this video is what comes out of doing that for myself. So, before lockdown, back in July 2019 until March 2020, 1 in 10 of us were depressed. That was defined as moderate to severe depression, and that's pretty awful to deal with moderate to severe depression, having dealt with that a number of times in my own life. And since lockdown, so these statistics now I'm going to give you were taken in June 2020. So since lockdown, 1 in 4 of us to 1 in 5 of us are dealing with moderate to severe depression. 1 in 4 women and 1 in 5 people. And those are available on the ons.gov website right now. And the other thing is that great social connections reduce our mortality rates by 26% as well, which really literally gives you your life back. And when we can't have people to our own homes, where we can't go out and meet friends and families, we are in an environment which does not support healthy brain functioning and mental health. And yeah, we have to adjust ourselves to deal with that. And on future episodes, I'm going to look at strategies, because this episode is just to talk about what it was like to experience depression personally, and what many people may be dealing with, and to draw attention to, at best case scenario, among adults, a 2-fold increase in the number of people currently suffering with depression as opposed to last year. And so those strategies will look at ways in which we can greet the present circumstances we have and transform them and look at new ways to gain the most of the situation we have. But with depression, and if you're currently suffering with that, you have my every bit of compassion and support, because I genuinely felt like I'd lost the ability to do that. You know, to turn the frown upside down or look for the fucking silver lining. I'd have given you a death stare that could have melted anything or frozen anything. I don't know. Because my experience of being depressed was a huge despondency. It was a dysphoria, which is Greek for unspeakable, unbearable, indescribable pain, a certain dysphoria. And that has been my experience at times in my life, like after the death of my best friend when I was 13, when I was bullied at school, when my father committed suicide, and when I came into a recovery from my addictions a number of years ago. And I'm very grateful to say that lately I've not experienced what I would define as moderate to severe depressive symptoms and had any suicidal ideation. And I'm incredibly grateful for that, because if you're currently dealing with that, and 1 in 3 of you will be if you're in my age band of 16 to 39 today in the UK, well, yeah, it is really hard to deal with what you're dealing with. And at the end, I'll just leave some ideas about where you might be able to go for support and help. And I look forward to hearing as well in the comments section if you've got ideas and suggestions for how people may be able to deal with what they're dealing with. So, given that the people I'm aiming mostly to speak to are men and women my age, from 16 to 39, or anyone, but people who are like me, and that means that 1 in 3 of us this year has had depression. And that is 3-fold increased from 1 in 9 last year. And I'm able to appear like I don't have depression when you meet me, and I do. I'm able to be charismatic. I'm able to perform. I am able to be happy and creative and the life and soul of the party. And on my way home alone, it hits me. A pain in my heart, in my soul, I almost describe it about. This dysphoria, this unspeakable pain, something I can't even put words to because it is unbearable. These internal sensations, what I'm dealing with, just cannot even be languaged because it is unbearable. And I do feel that gazing into someone's eyes who's dealing with it is a far more impactful way of communicating, and I use music often to do so, where words just fall really far short of what it is like to experience depression. And where I felt sad today because I couldn't go on my ride, there's a big difference between sadness and depression. Sadness being contained within the normal realm of healthy brain functioning is just something we adjust to. I've been able to turn it around quite quickly and make this video off the back of originally hoping to be going for a ride today. And with depression, there doesn't even need to be anything which has happened. And for me, and I think especially for men, it can be incredibly frightening and destabilizing and almost shaming to experience depression, because when I realized as an adult I was depressed, I made it mean so many things about myself, that my horizons were shortened in life, that I wouldn't be able to deal with stress, that I was damaged in some way, that my relationships wouldn't be healthy, that I was going to have to deal with way more than the average person. And all of these shameful thoughts about who I was were just stacking up about denial that I was depressed and dealing with something. There was not a single space for me to have any compassion for myself. I literally was so angry with myself for allowing myself to become depressed, when I personally believe 40% to 60% of these things are genetic factors beyond our control. And to a certain degree, how much of our environment is within our control? Right now is a perfect example. I do not have legal control over bringing anyone into my house, meeting a friend, going for dinner. I don't have the ability to get a work or job in an industry that I want to, because the industry I want to work in at the moment and participate in is currently not happening. There are no plays at the moment. There are no office meetings or places that I could go in my last company to work with other people. There are, restaurants not serving people. Airlines aren't operating in the same way. Many of us still do have our jobs, and many of us possess the innate capability and the skills or talents to be able to work from home effectively. And many of us don't. That's just the way we are, and this will suit some people and not others. And what I'm saying is that it's not really your fault if you end up depressed. Because if people say, oh, it's your fault for doing that thing which led you into that place, yeah, you're responsible for doing the things you're doing, but how much control do we really have? Depression has run in my family. For generations, it's something that people have dealt with. And there is that latent propensity for, in the right environment, a mental illness defined as depression for me to arise. And as I say, you would not have known it. You would not have known it. And my father, the day he died, was loving, warm, happy, charismatic, and the life and soul of the party. Quite literally, it was my grandfather's 80th birthday party. And no one had any idea that day he was planning to shoot himself in our garden. And today, yeah, I'm sad. I'm dealing with something about not being able to go out for a ride, but I'm kind of over that now. But earlier, when I lost a mate this year, I was really sad. And my grandfather died this year. And we lost the big house we used to live in, that I grew up as a child in, and moved to a smaller house. And I would say that I dealt with mild depression this year, where in lockdown, I didn't feel I had any meaning. I didn't feel I was able to perform well in the role that I was doing. I hadn't really found a meaningful activity like I'm doing now in psychotherapy to channel what I wanted to do. And I wasn't able to speak to anyone. I was living alone. And yeah, I was managing to do things like keep up my mental health, fitness. However, I did have an experience of waking up and not really wanting to do anything. That this year is kind of understandable, and I call it mild depression, because I didn't know I needed to seek really any treatment for it, as I was always and have been in therapy and need to be in therapy as a training psychotherapist. So I was able to process these things and unpack these things in real time. However, in the past, it was that unspeakable pain. I'd find myself drawing pictures of people hanging from trees after my father's suicide. I used to Google ways to commit suicide and look for ways and fantasize about doing that. Even at work in the city, I'd be working a job, having moderate success, and I'd wake up in the morning feeling like there was a whale on my chest. Just this unspeakable nothingness, a total absence of anything. Like who I was and who I knew myself to be was not there on demand. My fight and my vigor, and I used to be like, come on, where are you? Come on, mate, you can do this. You know, you're strong. And it was really destabilizing, most of all, because I did not know myself to be someone I deemed as a sick person or an ill person, because it really meant something to me. And I prided myself upon maintaining a good state of mental health. And to experience depression as an adult and being very interested in doing what I'm doing now and learning about things and supporting other people and experiencing that, I didn't give myself permission to not be okay at all. And I think as men, we really don't give ourselves permission to not be okay a great deal. And I think it can be really sad to watch so many people who have such wonderful parts of themselves shame themselves over breaking an ankle effectively. You can liken getting an injury in the gym and not being able to train your shoulder as hard for a bit and needing to relax to coping depression over the quarantine situation that we're facing. And 1 in 3 of us right now between 16 to 39 is currently experiencing depression. So you're not alone. But I didn't want to talk to anyone. I certainly didn't want anyone else knowing I was depressed. I did change my music taste. I listened to different kinds of music. I just watch films and sit at home in my bed a lot as well. And I wanted to take drugs when I was younger and had depression, just to get away from it. You know, I would engage in these really, extravagant parties where I would be off the rails a bit and having a good old laugh, and they'd be like, yeah, Henry, life and soul of the party. But I had no peace when I came back home alone. Being alone with my thinking was something I describe often, and all of those concerns and considerations for what it meant that I had depression, that I was less capable, that I would be less successful, that no one would want me to be with me, or that people couldn't deal with what I was dealing with, or that people couldn't understand or relate to what I was dealing with, or that it was just I was a failure for having depression. All of those thought patterns and ideals which I placed upon myself, which I think society and the stigma around mental health perceived by myself, placed on myself, meant that I did not want to accept that situation at all. I did not want to get help. I think many of us have a thing, like a resistance to getting medication. And there are many effective ways of treating it, which include psychiatric help. Tricyclic antidepressants like fluoxetine or Prozac, to anticonvulsants, to mood stabilizers. There are many, many ways, from a psychiatric and then a therapeutic way of doing that. I see a therapist twice a week. I have to, because I am training to be a therapist, and I currently deliver therapy sessions, and it's important that I'm able to recalibrate myself and ensure that I'm clear and free from my own shit and whatever anyone else has said when I go into my next session, so that they get the service that I want to provide. And it can be not only destabilizing to our identity, who we think ourselves to be, but our careers. The fear and consideration for what happens if we get mental health, we get passed over promotion. And I think many people put themselves in unsuitable places where they try and mask what they're really dealing with while it gnaws away behind the scenes and starts to rot and creates its own negative behavioural loops and habits for the sake of upholding a facade, a veneer and an appearance professionally and personally on the outside with people. And depression is isolating in those many, many ways that I just lost interest in things I wanted to do and step back with brief outlets of charisma and charm to being alone in bed. And that dread that I'd wake up with in the morning, looking down and wondering whether I should jump. And so if you are dealing with that, there are places you can go for help. You can reach out to 111 if you're currently having suicidal thoughts right now and put a plan in place or want to talk to somebody. You can go onto the Mind website and go and find many resources there, and you can speak to Samaritans. And I know that's not an enormous offer to something, but you can also talk to your mates. You can give them a call. And I'm right now available to offer one-to-one sessions as a trainee psychotherapist, for which I charge £40 for 50 minutes or an hour. It's nice that I don't have to travel or have someone else come and see me, so I can do 1 hour sessions. And if you'd like to do that, please message me in the direct message box. But yeah, there are many things we can do. And some of the most healing things for me have just been actually saying it's okay to not be okay to myself. Because when I stopped shaming myself, it made the problems I was dealing with about depression just depression. Not everything I thought it meant about who I was. Because I want to say very clearly and emphatically that there is nothing wrong with anyone. You are perfect, whole and brilliant just the way you are, whether or not you have a mental illness. That has no bearing on your value and your ability to contribute, and you're just fucking awesome because you are. And I want people to really get that before they speak to themselves about what they're dealing with or what it means that they're dealing with a mental illness like depression. So look, thank you so much for tuning in, and just really look out for one another and support one another, because if you looked at the person on your left and the person on your right and down at yourself, that's 3 people. The likelihood is that one of you, if you're between 16 and 39 right now, is dealing with depression. So thanks very much for listening.